Turk, what are you doing?
I'm drinking. I'm thirsty.
I know you're drinking and you're thirsty, but what are you drinking?
I'm drinking blood. What about you?
I'm drinking plasma.
Ooh!
It's too late. My blood is in your veins.
You are now listening to the Turk Raz podcast. We bring you our thoughts and reactions to what is happening in pop culture today, and we go back in time to revisit classic films of the past. Well, that does kind of make sense that the two of us both feel vampiric, because our next retro round table is a movie about vampires.
Yes, it is.
The Lost Boys. It is the 1987 American supernatural black comedy horror film directed by Joel Schumacher. And he's famous for directing St. Elmo's Fire, Flatliners, Falling Down, The Client, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. Of course, he's famous for bringing bat nipples to Batman.
I love Joel Schumacher already.
And he did Time to Kill, and among other great films. The Lost Boys was released and produced by Warner Brothers. Surprise, surprise, another Warner Brothers movie we're talking about. On July 31st, 1987, so it is its 35th anniversary we're celebrating.
Again!
This movie was a critical commercial success, grossing over $32 million against a production budget of $8.5 million.
Pretty good.
Right off the bat, this movie was a big deal. People liked it, and it grew into something much more. The film had an awesome ensemble cast, including the likes of Corey Haim as Sam Emerson. It had Jason Patric as his big brother, Michael Emerson. It also starred Kiefer Sutherland, who I think kind of steals the show, as David. Jamie Gertz, I like Jamie, as Star.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Then we have Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander, who played the Frog Brothers, Edgar and Alan. Then we have Diane Wiest, who played Lucy Emerson, their hippie mom. We have Edward Herrmann as Max. We got Alex Winter, Bill as Marco, and we have Bernard Hughes as just Grandpa. I want to just kind of mention here before we get rolling that Corey Haim, Edward Herrmann, Bernard Hughes, Richard Donner, who is his production company to put this movie on, Joel Schumacher, are no longer with us.
That's a lot of people from that one movie that are gone.
Yeah, this one movie, there's a lot of people gone. Yeah. And also, actually, another actor, Brooke McCarter, who plays Paul, the blonde vampire there that kind of looks like a Def Leppard lead singer. He's no longer with us either.
Yes.
Anyways, this is a great film. The movie was actually originally supposed to be directed by Richard Donner, but he was given Lethal Weapon, so he turned it over to Joel Schumacher, which I think that was a better choice in the long run.
Probably. The
film title is a reference to the characters featured in J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan stories, who, like vampires, never grow old. The screenplay was modeled on Donner's recent hit, The Goonies, which made sense. And actually, it was envisioned as a more of a juvenile vampire venture with 13 or 14-year-old vampires, while the Frog Brothers were chubby 8-year-old Cub Scouts. And the character of Star was a young boy. When Donner committed to other projects, they brought in Joel Schumacher, who was approached to direct the film. He didn't really want to direct it at first, but eventually kind of relented and said, yeah, I'll take it on. Why he decided to take it on, he insisted on making the film sexier and more adult. Was the right move.
Yes, it was.
The script was retooled. I think this movie has one of the best casts This film is beautiful to look at, and the music's great. It really is the cast that makes it.
I would also mention the music really does. The soundtrack in the film really helps it. It's a great soundtrack.
And actually, Thomas Newman it also scored some of the pieces in there with the original stuff, but then they had various artists, like you said, In Excess.
Yeah.
At the time, the cast was relatively unknown, which I think plays to movies like this favor, because you kind of just concentrate on the characters as opposed to when you have a high-profile actor, you tend to look at them.
That's right.
Let's talk about the two Coreys. This is their first outing together, and right off the bat, when you see them on screen, you can see they have great chemistry. Actually, all three, Jameson and the two Coreys, they played well together.
Yep.
And that's where most of the laughs kind of came from, those characters' interaction.
Oh, yeah. Most of my laughs were definitely from them.
Yeah. Turk, you and I can kind of relate to this. Like, they're into comic books. I just love the fact that when the movie, when they go to the comic shop, it reminded me of a comic shop I used to go back in my hometown. And it was just kind of laid out like that. Actually, in the movie, that's a real comic shop.
Well, it better be.
Now, as far as cultural influence, I think The Lost Boys helped shift popular culture depictions of vampires. The film's often credited with bringing a more youthful appeal to the vampire genre by making the vampires like sexy and young. Because, a lot of movies, they're old. Well, if you think like Dracula and Nosferatu's like some warlock looking Mother Hubbard. Anyways, Turk, when did you first see this movie? What did you think of it? And what was your kind of thinking rewatching it?
Again, I didn't go to the theater often as a kid. Probably just didn't have the funds to, but I'm pretty sure I ended up renting this when it came out. Definitely would have been around the Halloween time, more likely. I enjoyed the first watch. I remember it always being a good movie. I always remember Kiefer Sutherland was probably my favorite part of the film. So that kind of, every time I see him in a film, I always remember him from Lost Boys. So it was kind of just a memory.
Well, in this movie, he was actually 18 years old. And right from the start, and even from Joe Schumacher's own words, why he cast him, he knew he was already a great character actor, which makes sense because his father is Donald Sutherland, who's a great character actor. In
Very
his own
good
right.
actor, yeah.
So there's just something with that bleach blonde hair, the mullet type haircut, and the gear he wore, because they look like these vampires in this movie they dress like punk rockers, but they also look like they could be older than they really are. Like, they look like 18-year-olds, but maybe they were like 50 years old. You can kind of tell that maybe there's a little bit of age to them or not, because they are the Lost Boys and they're ageless. Yeah.
Rewatching it was actually a really good experience. Again, I have to thank this podcast that we're doing because it, makes me rewatch these films and revisit them. And I really enjoy watching these because it just takes you back down to memory lane. And it's a great time.
And seeing Jamie Gertz's star probably brings back some adolescent feelings, eh?
Oh, yes. Yep. When you're sitting on a bus wearing sweats going to junior high, put your books in front of your crotch.
Let's just say that could be a long ride home.
Yeah. If you have to wait one extra stop, do it.
Hopefully have a big book bag.
That's right.
My relation to this is another one of those that I caught at a young age. To me, it was another game changer. Because this movie not only has humor, but also it felt serious. It felt really well constructed. Joe Schumacher, he really took it serious.
He did.
And they didn't have a big budget. Like I said, it was $8.5 million. But they stretched every penny. And it felt like, for example, we get a lot of aerial shots in this movie. I think originally they had it envisioned that we were going to see more of the vampires and them flying on screen. But due to budgets, they couldn't do that. And I think it's actually more effective that you don't see it. It's kind of leaves it to the imagination.
Yes, I think if they were to use some sort of animatronic or some sort of cable system with bats, and I think it would have taken away from the film. Like you said, you leave it to your imagination, and when a lot of the shots are coming from high above and the camera is shaking a lot, like a bat would fly, that just gives you all the cringy feelings that a bat would give you.
Yeah, or with this one, this is feels like it could really be real, these vampires. Yeah. There's a weird reality to them. Mm-hmm. And of course, the rewatch, this is another one of those movies, and I think I don't feel any different. Movies like this, to me, just feel so much better.
Yep, I agree.
You had hot actors, like they're up and rising. Essentially, everything came together with this movie. You had the right actors, you had the music, you had the right director, you had the right writers. It all came together, and to this day, it holds up really well. Which is why it made a right fit for our number 2 of our 4 movies we're covering for the month of October. The premise of the movie is pretty quite simple. Always had a great tagline: sleep all day, party all night, never grow old, never die. It's fun to be a vampire. I love that. The story is about Michael and his brother Sam, who moved together with their mother to stay with their grandfather in the Santa Carla, California. One day, Michael meets a girl and falls for her, to know later that she is with a gang of guys who are vampires. They give him wine mixed with blood, and Michael drinks it without knowing what it contains. Been there before. Things change for Michael, and he finds out the truth. He tries his best to resist the urge of becoming a vampire and fights with the help of his brother Sam and, of course, the Frog Brothers. All right, so the movie opens up with a beautiful shot over the Pacific Ocean at night.
Yes, it is a beautiful sight, even to see it in person.
Yeah, this is another one of those movies. I love the opening titles. The movie kind of starts, and you can hear the music in the background. You can hear some lyrics. And then we kind of get to, we see the actors' names, but then we get to that boardwalk. It looks like Santa Cruz, but in the movie it's called
Santa Carla.
A fictitious name. Filming the movie, the people, they didn't want them to use that name because it's an adult film.
Bad for tourism.
Yeah. I guess so. Well, I guess
maybe
Santa Carla is murder capital of the world.
Yes, it is.
And I love that billboard when we get to aerial shot during the day. Before that, the movie opens up and we're on the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
And we get kind of a slow-mo pick. I love that, where you see Keith Sutherland and his crew are just walking while other people are riding on it.
Yeah, there's something about amusement parks at night that kind of creep me out a little bit. And the setting is perfect for vampires, I think.
It's perfect. And I think a lot of other horror movies have been set there. Even a Dirty Harry movie has been set in that type of location. So there is something unsettling about amusement parks, especially at night.
Yeah.
And then when there's nobody around.
Yep.
But yeah, so you kind of right off the bat, you see they're messing around with this couple there. The guard basically tells him to get off the boardwalk, and he tells the other couple of the boardwalk, and then we kind of get to another aerial shot. See, these aerial shots, you just think it's just an aerial shot in the movie showing us the landscape, but actually those aerial shots are done by design because it's actually from the vampire's perspective.
Yeah.
And then obviously that guard gets his up and comings.
He gets it.
He gets it. Even his car door.
Yep.
Then the movie kind of takes us to a family that basically has financial troubles, Lucy and her 2 sons. And what I like about this, as they're driving and they're kind of deciding to what radio station they want to play, and you can tell right away the mom's kind of a hippy dippy. And I like when they're driving through the city and they're kind of right by the boardwalk. The movie does a great way to emphasize all these pictures of missing people, missing kids, because, the movie's called The Lost Boys. And throughout the whole movie, you see this periodically in the film. And this is in the 80s, and I remember growing up, there was a lot of these on milk cartons.
Yes, there were. Even in the city that I lived in, we heard lots of stories of kids going missing. Yeah, so this is a great kind of montage, and with some music, Echo Bunny, they're playing their rendition of People Are Strange. So there's a lot of the Doors feel to it, and it's only kind of fitting where the vampire's lair is in that hotel that kind of got caught in Earthquake. Yes. Because I always thought like the vampires kind of dressed like a cross between 80s and 1960 Doors. Yep. Pretty cool. And and it's great because we see this family. They obviously left their father and they're going to stay with her grandpa. And I just love how you right away you see the difference between the grandpa's way of life and the people in the city. Like you could tell he's someone that doesn't go into the city that much. No. There's all kinds of, and you notice like if you look around, there's lots of wood, like they almost look like wooden stakes. Like if you think about it, when he's all his lumber. Well, yeah, looking at his house there in his shop, I know he was a taxidermist. It kind of, I think it was a lot of antlers from deer and moose or whatever you want to call it, because he was a taxidermist.
Yeah.
So I think you do see a lot of wooden, stakey looking things, but a lot of them, I just chalked it up as like antlers all over the place.
Yeah. And obviously we know why Lucy is kind of a hippie type. The grandpa is kind of a hippie.
He's a hippie.
Isn't it great that, they show up and he's plain dead? And like he's at an age.
So what a prank, eh?
Yeah. They're like, oh, I think he's dead. Oh no, he's just a light, heavy sleeper. So he usually just does he get drunk and he just passes out on the porch?
He would be a fun grandpa.
Definitely a fun grandpa. But he's got no TV.
No, because he does other things to entertain himself, I'm sure.
Well, he has the Whittle Johnson to kind of entertain him.
That's right.
And he obviously has his his plants that he attends to. But yeah, it's pretty funny that you get a sense of this place, the boys. It's a great introduction to the family.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Then it goes back to the nightlife of the boardwalk. Both Sam and Michael are there. They're checking it out. They're walking. And of course, typical, there's music playing. And we got Triple H from the WWF. They're playing the saxophone with baby oil.
Oh my God. This scene is so funny. Just this guy is all greased right up. Just making love to that saxophone on stage.
Let's get ready to suck it!
He wasn't. You can totally tell he was lip syncing. Yeah. Well, evidently that the saxophone player, that individual, he was the saxophone player for Tina Turner. He's famous for that.
Okay, right on.
Evidently.
Nice.
I knew this way back in the day when we were watching this with our cousins, and they were making fun of all the baby oil, and yeah, he's pretty lubed up. But the significance of that concert is Michael gets his first glimpse of Star.
Would you call it a glimpse or a creepy stare session?
Well, this is in the 80s, and Michael has one-itis here. He sees her.
Yeah.
And really, can you blame him? Because, like, Jamie Gertz she is gorgeous.
Swing!
I know this is years later, but I especially love her in Twister. She is, like, super hot in Twister.
Yeah, like, she's just a gorgeous actress. Like, I always, like, I know you and I tend to gush over a lot of these women that we talk about, but, man, Jamie Gertz is right up there. And her and Terry Hatcher almost kind of lookalikes.
In a way.
You know, both super sexy. You know? Yeah. And the thing is Joe Schumacher, and when they were doing this movie, he was looking to cast like a blonde California looking female for this role. And he was struggling. And Jason Patrick, who plays Michael, he worked with Jamie Gertz before, and he was like, you got to get her. She's fantastic. Her and I work well together. Of course, Schumacher kind of mused that I think Jason had a big crush on her, but can you blame him? She was so gorgeous.
Yeah, can't blame him.
And she's not in the movie that much, but she has a great presence. She's likable, but she looks like she's kind of like one of those people or characters that she's seen too much in her young life. You know, Sam is kind of getting in the way of his plans because he's walking after her. Like, so he basically tells his little brother to F off, and he does, because he finds a place that kind of interests his peak. It's a comic book. So we learn that Sam's a comic book, and he knows his Superman. And this is where we meet the Frog Brothers. Kudos to the wardrobe department there, because Corey Haim's fashion is just off the charts.
Yep.
He's in the comic book shop and he's going through stuff, and then he sees these two guys kind of peering over on him, and then they come up to him and they're like kind of like, hey man, notice anything kind of peculiar about Santa Carla? And he's like, yeah, it's okay. What are you guys talking about? And then he's kind of giving them shit about how they're placing their Superman comics, and they're like, yeah. Once you read this, and they're like vampire comics, and he's like, well, I don't like this stuff. No, you should. But what's so fantastic about this scene, and it's always stood out to me, their parents in the back are like these spaced out, strung up, like they look like they're blasted.
Yeah.
Like their parents are just sitting there, and through the whole movie, every time we're in the comic shop, the parents of the Frog Brothers, they're just like sitting down looking like they're stoned to the wall. So when you're watching this movie, just always like freeze frame it or go back and you see like they don't move. I don't know. They look like mannequins. Michael, he makes contact with Star, but she jumps on the bikes with David and the boys, and they take off.
Right. And so they essentially get David, or they get Michael to kind of go with them, right?
Yeah. then obviously Lucy, because they're all there. So Lucy finds a kid stranded, and she's right by the video store, and it happens to be owned by this big, tall, lengthy guy called Max.
Yeah.
And it's a cool video store. Like that would be kind of cool to go into on the boardwalk. And they give the kid a sucker, and he's, starts talking to her, and she basically plays damsel in distress, and I need a job and all this kind of shit. And he's putting out the moves with those funky glasses and that kind of wavy hair.
Gives her a job on the spot.
And David and the boys pop in there, and they're just kind of touring around, and he tells them, what are you guys doing in here? He tells
him, he says, hey, I thought I told you guys not to come back here.
And the way the movie sets it up, you're like, oh, they caused him some trouble.
That's right.
But little do we know that, he's Peter Pan and they're the Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to the girl that played the teller there. She was pretty foxy. Evidently, she actually had a bigger role in the movie, but they had to cut her scenes due to...
I wish I could remember, but I'm sorry, I don't.
This is why I am part of the crew here. I remember these little things here,
Yeah.
Well, they had so much fun at the boardwalk, they end up back there the next night. Mm-hmm. And Sam ends up back at the comic book store, and he encounters the Frog Brothers, and they kind of tell them their manifesto, that they're here to fight for truth, justice, and the American way.
Superman's motto,
right? And it's always funny that the Frog Brothers, and I think this is how they played it, pretty comical in the movie, but they played pretty straight.
They do.
And apparently Joe Schumacher told Corey Feldman that while preparing for the role to watch like just straight Rambo, Chuck Norris movies. And it makes kind of sense how you see how his character is. That's why he's played that way and he acts out.
Yeah, you hear his voice. He sounded like he was like 40 years old.
Almost like Christian Bale's Batman. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah.
What's the trigger?
Where's the trigger?
Yeah. That's right. Poor Christian Bale. He gets a hard time for that.
He does.
Oh, good for you. But on the other hand, Michael makes contact with Star, gets her name. So they're going to go meet up, but David and the boys intervene. Mm-hmm. They got bikes, and he's got his little dirt bike.
Yeah.
So he tells them about whatever you want to meet at this point, which is something. Why would he expect Michael to even know where things are here? You just moved there. It's like 2 days in, but whatever.
I think he was asking him to like, hey, see if you can keep up with us, because they were kind of racing there. Hey,
and Michael kind of thought, I can't beat you, and he's like, you don't have to. You just have to keep up. And a cool scene, music and all that, and they go riding through. They ride on the beach, right into the woods. It's pretty awesome.
It's dark, it's foggy out, and he can't see much past his headlight, and they're racing and they're going faster and faster, and he's like wondering like what's going on, and there's a cliff like right there, and he eventually stops in time, but he gets angry at David because he's like, what the fuck, you're like trying to kill me here? Yeah.
And this is something we see kind of throughout the movie, that David is always kind of goading, upping it with Michael, as we will see. And yeah, he's like, okay, it's just you and me. And it's like, I think you're outmatched there, Michael. But he just says, how far do you want to go? And I think that's a cool line. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't mean nothing to Michael at that moment, but
it means a lot to David.
It means a lot to David. So then they take him back to their hideout or cave.
I call it lair.
Yeah, well, it is their lair. It's their vampire lair, and it's a very cool scene.
So then. Yeah, they're in the lair and he's showing him around, and I think he asked him if he's hungry and he wants some Chinese food.
Yeah, and also I want to point out that the lair is a remnants of an old hotel that collapsed during an earthquake in 1906. And I always thought, interesting, 1906. Is this just something that they knew, or did they live through it? I always wonder.
Maybe live through it.
I think they didn't, by just the way the movie is, but it makes you kind of think, well, how old are these vampires? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then so he sends Marco, dude, to go get some Chinese food.
Right. So then he's eating it and he looks at it. It's just noodles. But then he looks again and it's like maggots or whatever, like a box full of maggots. Because so David is tricking Michael's, tricking him with visuals that like he's not seeing the right thing. Sure, what he's seeing.
Because he's doing that for the end goal so Michael will drink the blood.
Yes. Yeah. So he's totally like changing his reality around him. Yeah. Just 1 minute he sees the noodles, 1 minute he sees maggots. So he's not even sure what, to do. And then finally the bottle comes up and he's like, here, do you want some wine? I think he said. said. And he's like, yeah, sure. And then he drinks it and he sees wine, but he's actually, that's a bottle of blood.
Yeah, it is. And I thought it was very interesting with this movie's take on the vampire lore. These vampires eat. In many cases, vampires can't eat food. It's just blood.
Just blood.
It's just blood. Where this, they're eating, well, how could you blame him? I mean, Chinese food is awesome. So if I was a vampire, I'd be still trying to eat it.
Me too.
Even if it made me sick.
That's right.
Well, actually, it makes me sick now. But yeah, so he goes into drinking out of that awesome bottle. And of course, Star's like, you don't want to do that. That's blood. And he's like, yeah, right. Come on now. Fool me once, fool me twice. No.
How far are you willing to go, Michael?
Drink some of this, Michael.
Never grow old, Michael. And you'll never die.
Be one of us.
He drinks it, and then again, it's a great with the music playing in the background, and you're showing how it not intercuts, but it fades the shot, and you're seeing everything's happening through the whole time. You see Michael, he's just chugging, like he basically drank the bottle by himself.
Yeah, he got a good taste of blood there.
Yeah, I like how Marco's pushing David in that wheelchair, and he's got a joint. Yeah, these are cool. Like, see, these are cool vampires. You want to hang out with them. I think that's what's why it was so appealing. This movie is that David and them, they're pretty cool. I mean, you'll hang out with them, and they might drive you off a cliff, and then they'll eat you. Yep, but it'll be a good time. So then after that, they go to the railroad track.
Yes, the bridge. Yeah.
They hop out there, and I thought that was kind of like they're doing kind of like the initiation, but they're also doing like what a lot of young men or men do is thrill seek.
Yeah.
Like you can imagine, like, what? I remember us walking at night on tracks like that, not on cliffs, but and you'd be walking over like a bridge, and it's always kind of spooky because there's the space between the tracks.
In order to escape if a train came, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be kind of where it hears.
Well, that too, yeah.
Yeah. So then they hang on the rafter there, and as the train, because again, he dupes him.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. And then so they're all hanging there, and then they start when the train is coming one at a time. They're all like, looks like they're falling to their impending doom, and Michael's like flipping out, and they're like, "It's okay, Michael. You'll be fine. Just let go. It's all good." Yeah. I'm like, well, he's not gonna let go, and they all do. And then he hears them calling. So the scene always feels like a dreamlike. Like you're like, is this for real? Is he that drunk, or But no. And then he falls, like he can't hold himself no more.
That's right.
And he falls right into bed.
Yeah, he ends up in his bed. So that was interesting. I wonder what happened to him. Where did they suspend him and not allow him to fall and die? Did they bring him home? How did he get there?
Well, that's a good question. Did he unaware actually float and stuff because he's now half vampire?
True. And
I like that concept that you drink the blood and you have vampire kind of symptoms, but until you make your first kill, you're not a full. I like the mythology that this film kind of like. This movie's almost like designed to be like more than one film, which I'm glad it's just one film.
Yeah.
So at that point, okay, he wakes up. Well, Sam comes and wakes him up, and you feel like he hasn't slept. And we've all been there. Yeah. And he wakes him up, and his mom, of course, "Oh, Michael, can you look after little Sam? I want to go out and date my boss."
Yeah. Well, he's already wearing sunglasses at this point, right? Yeah. And then during the day?
Yeah, well,
Michael puts the glasses on.
Yeah, because to answer the phone, he has to have sunglasses on, and like Sam's like, "Really? You need shades to talk on the phone?"
Yeah. So already the light is bothering him.
It is. Yeah. And
he's not feeling well.
He's not feeling well. He's acting weird. He's moody. And of course, because Sam is now reading the comics, he's getting an education himself. He notices things are
they're not
what
right.
They should be.
Yeah.
But of course, their mom is trying to get her jiggy with the tall man.
Max, yep.
Sam needs to be looked after.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're hanging out. It's at night. And the grandpa has a date, and he uses Windex as a pinch for some cologne.
Oh, God. Yeah, he's so funny.
It works every time. Hey, man, she was going for seconds. Yeah, so he takes off. And then it's a good scene, like kind of played for tension there, where it looks like David and the boys were circling the house. It's like there's nothing in the way. There's no cords, trees. Usually homes are not just, you can't just.
Yeah, I know. But again, like these guys can bend reality. So anything is really possible with them.
And then they open the door. There's nothing there. Sam, he's got to go have his little bath.
Yeah.
And this is a great scene because he's singing a song. He's got the big what was it? Ghetto blaster in there.
Yeah.
Dogs in there, and he's like, it's pretty funny scene.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense because Lucy, the way she kind of handles her boys, like you can tell, like way she kind of treats them because she's very over motherly.
Yeah.
Like she's tucking him into bed, and like then Michael, he's gonna have a swig of milk, and I always remember this scene because you see in the back of the milk carton that little laddie, the little Eddie monster that's hanging out with Star.
Yes,
and I thought that was a great effect. That again, continuing to show that there's missing boys and missing people. And then obviously it looks like he has some pain and he spills all that freaking healthy calcium, and then he's hungry and he goes after, and it's a real creepy scene. You know, he looks demented and he looks like he's going to go kill his little brother.
But then the dog,
Nanook,
gets a little weary and starts to growl and knows something is up.
Well, just like the comic when they're talking about vampires who have the hounds of hell protecting them, Nanook is protecting Sam. Mm-hmm. And he jumps after him. It's a great scene. And like he goes underneath the water to rinse off the soap on his hair. Like he looks like he's using the bubbles. Oh yeah, just it's crazy. And then he comes out and what the hell's happening in there? And then he goes out of the tub and it's all dark in there. And then he hears like some breathing. He turns on a light and it's his brother, but he's got blood all over his hand there. And I like isn't it funny that his first concern is Nanook? He doesn't even care about his brother.
Yeah.
His brother's bleeding, his hand's like bitten off, but he's like, what'd you do to my dog, you asshole?
Yeah.
You know, typical that most people care about animals. Like just look at movies, right?
Yep.
Like they have to put out no animals were harmed during the film.
Yes.
Who cares about the actor or the stunt guy? They're only human.
Exactly. So then this is where I think Sam starts to think that there's something up with Michael.
He sees that his brother has no reflection.
Right.
And so he gets spooked out and he goes into his room, locks it, and Michael goes into his room and he tries to lay down and you just hear his heart pumping because he's going through all these changes and he starts floating. And this is like almost like so bad that he's floating that he ends up outside the house.
Yeah, because he can't stop floating.
Can't stop floating and he's going and he's grabbing and he's destroying his room. And then, of course, Sam's calling Lucy. And like, Mom, we got to have a talk about Michael. And then they're on the phone arguing and it sounds like Michael's going to get him. Of course, he's going to come get me. And of course, she just leaves the date.
Yeah.
Like just runs. And like, the thing is, what did Lucy think she was going to do if there was like some type of prowler in there? Like, is she going to be the difference maker?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure she just thought the kid was having some wacko dream or something, or I don't know. I mean, would you actually leave a date saying, oh, I need to go save my son from a vampire? Like, no. Well, yeah. You'd be like, hey, honey, go to sleep. I'll be home later.
Well, just when you both think Michael, because it's suggested that Michael's attacking Sam kind of from the conversation when they're all on the line.
Yeah.
He's coming to get me. And like, you know, you figure that a parent be like, oh, it's just my boys being goofy. Because you can tell, you know, brothers will be rambunctious.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of odd. And of course, everything's fine. And she comes home. And she sees all the mess in there and, oh, Mom, I just had a bad dream. I was reading this comic book.
Yeah.
So she's kind of pissed off. But then Michael takes off because he's gotta get to the bottom of shit because things are unraveling for him.
Yeah. So he heads to the lair.
He heads to the lair. Meets with Star. But David and the boys are out kind of harassing Max because we get that scene, so the movie kind of hints that there's something going on with Max and these vampires, or you know, sets it up that maybe Max is gonna get it. Of course, that's not the case.
That's right.
So they're out of the lair and he goes in there and he sees Star and he's like, what's going on with me? And best way that she can help him is have sex with him, mind you, in front of because he was there in the lair. He's there right beside the bed. Yeah. And then before you know it, they go at it.
Uh-oh.
You know, so hey, you got to get some type of experience somehow. This is how it goes back in those days.
Yeah. So meanwhile, that's happening. I believe Sam is talking to the Frog Brothers again.
Yeah, he's contacting the Frog Boys that, okay, this is my issue. They kind of lay it out. And of course, their solution is kill him. They just want to kill him. Kill them all.
But then when they find out that, I believe they have a hunch that Max could be the leader, the head vampire.
Yeah,
they're like, okay, we need to do a test.
They deduce that his brother is only half vampire, he's half infected, so they're like, okay, we can't kill him I don't want to kill him because we have to find out who the head vampire is.
Yeah.
So and then we get that scene where Lucy brings Sam with him. She goes during the day as an apology to Max running out on him. They go there and she sees his dog Thorn,
right.
And Thorn attacks her. In those events, Sam's like, okay, this is what we got here. My brother looks like he's turning into a vampire. He's hanging around these dudes. We go to Max. He works at night, and we went over to his house, and he had this dog that's supposed to be a benign, friendly dog. Almost killed my mom.
Yeah.
So they start putting it together.
That's right.
The Frog Brothers are on the scene.
So they start drumming up some ideas and making weapons and whatnot, and that's right. She invites him over for supper, right?
Yeah, this is a great scene. Invites him over for supper. Like she owes him. She's cooking.
Yeah. He
obviously brings the Frog Brothers. He's like, well, these are my friends, and there's a good interaction between Michael and Max because this plays out later in the film where he's like, okay, well, you're the man of the house, so I'm not coming in until you invite me in. But there's a reason why he did that.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Which
we'll call to it later.
So he comes in there, Michael's gone. He's going to go see David, and Max is there, and they're having supper. And I like how they're eating, and the Frog Boys are just like, it's just odd. It's awkward.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do all kinds of tricks. Like, don't they put supposed to be grated cheese, but it's garlic.
Garlic, yes.
And I like how he eats it and he starts coughing up. Oh, see, I bet you really hate that.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's a little much. And then he spills the water on him.
The holy water.
No, it wasn't holy water.
It wasn't?
No.
Okay, it was just regular water?
They didn't think it through.
Weird. Okay.
They go to a church after that.
That's right. I remember them going to a church and filling their canteens.
The water has to be blessed. That's how it works.
That's right.
You can't just use water. It has to be blessed by a priest or someone of clergy.
Right.
But then they did the reflection thing. And then, of course, his reflection. So you're like, okay, well, that kind of rules out Max.
Yeah.
Of course, he has something to do with him because why would David and them go to his house there and torment him and leave him alone? Like the history we saw that these vampires, when they do go after a human, or they usually kill them and they end up missing, but not Max. So right there, we still know something's afoot. Michael is with David and the crew at this time, and they're like, we're going to take you to this. They go outside to some kind of bush party. Tells them its initiation is over. And this is a great scene because they're out there kind of creeping, watching. And he's like, okay. And then we get these close-ups of all of the boys and their vampire, their true self. And a great makeup, good scares, lighting. It plays out really good. And then they fly and they just massacre these guys. And you see that Michael's like horrified, but he's also lured. He wants to go there because he's hungry. He's feeling the urge to drink some blood. But like these vampires, you can tell like they don't just like, bite into the neck and drain the blood. They're like massacring, like they're ripping out throats.
Yeah.
They're like basically dismembering. They're totally just massacring.
Because they have super strength, so they can tear a body apart.
Yes. The thing is, I know this will play later at the end of the film when we get there, but I know I always say that, but
yeah. Well, one phrase that I remember David telling Michael basically about what they had just done and telling him to join them is you will never grow old and you will never die, but you must feed. So just basically giving him the gist of like, hey man, you could live forever and have a good time, but you got to drink.
It's a cool scene.
Yeah, I like that. It was good.
And I want to state that every line that comes out of Kiefer Sutherland in this movie, it means something because like out of the principal cast, he barely has any lines in this movie. But when he talks, it has such a huge meaning. But after that, the boys decide to take action, that they're going to go and get these vampires because they know where their lair is.
Yeah, I believe this is like where Michael tells his brother officially that he is a vampire.
They deduce that David is the head vampire, right? So Michael's attending to Star and Laddie in their weekend because it's during the day. And Sam and Alan and Edgar, they go searching for the vampires.
At this point, when they take Grandpa's car, I remember this is where I started to wonder if Grandpa knew something. It kind of, he didn't say anything to allude to that, but just the way he looks, you could tell like he knows what's going on around here.
Well, yeah, because when he's in his little taxidermy room there, when Max was over there for dinner, you notice he's always kind of opening his door, seeing what's going on. And throughout the whole movie, there's a reason why he doesn't go into town.
Yes.
And there's a reason why everything's all fenced up around there. And then in that scene when they take the car, you see him. He has these big. They look like giant stakes.
Yeah.
Which they
like
do
the size of a fence post.
like a big fence post, but you can use it for something other than a fence post. Mm-hmm. Plays later in the film.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so they take the car, they go to the cave, and they're rounding up Star and Laddie, and the boys are going to take care of that. And, you know, Michael's like, man, you can't go there, but he's like, I got this. Little brother's got this. You know, I have nightmares from reading, like, comic books.
And take baths.
And takes baths. Yeah. I know this is took place a little bit earlier, but I like when Sam at night didn't want to sleep in his room by himself, and he wants to sleep with his mom. And he's got a house coat and he has all this garlic around him. She's like, "Ooh, you smell garlic," and he's like, "Holy shit!" Yep. He's taking every precaution.
He is.
It's a fantastic scene.
Yeah,
you know, and like again, I don't know too many moms that would allow. Well,
no,
like, jeez, you know, and he just his mom. That night too.
Oh, they're from California. Yeah, who knows?
She's a sweetheart. Like Diana, like she's fantastic. Like you love her to be your mom. Back to the cave. So the boys they find where the vampires are hanging, because then they like because they think they're gonna find a coffins, but no, actually it's a giant tomb.
Yes,
and they're hanging from there, and great visual.
It is. It's creepy, yeah.
But they don't know who David is because Michael's not there. So they take the little one, and of course, Bill.
Oh,
Michael draws and I was always sad to see him go first because I thought he, out of like the other vampires, he stood out.
He does.
He kind of, he doesn't say much. Like he has barely any dialogue.
But just the way his facial expressions were and the way he smiled, it was just a good impression.
I always forget that Alex Winter, he's British.
Right. Yeah, and he doesn't look, you know what I mean? No. To look at him, you'd think just a normal American
I've never
kid,
heard him speak in his British act. Like I've always heard him.
No, I don't think I have either.
His That's impressive. American. Yeah, it's pretty good. But yeah, so they take him out and you see all this fluid when they stab him. And it's a good touch where the other vampires are kind of rattled by it. Like it disturbs them, because you see a lot of other movies where vampires basically at that time, they're basically dead. You know, not until the sun goes down, they're reanimated in a way.
Yeah.
With them. So the boy's kind of like, oh shit. And David is like, he wakes and he goes after them. And it's a cool scene because he grabs his leg, but just at the sun touches his arm and it just lights on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good.
And I don't know if it's because of the context, and it's a great scene when David pulls back and he's like, tonight. But it's a great scene. I don't know if it's due to the contact or whatever, but you see like a tear stream down his cheek after like he gets burnt and he pulls back into the shade. You know, because I think a lot of times like the vampire contacts, probably a lot of people are sensitive to that or allergic.
Perhaps.
So I wonder if it's due to that, but I thought that was a great effect for the shot.
Yeah.
And I always remembered that. I'm like, damn, Keither's good. Mm-hmm. And then they almost drive off the cliff. And of course, the Frog Brothers, they're all kind of like, they're off put because they weren't expecting it to go down that way. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, the enemy talked to us. They're pretty prejudiced towards vampires because they weren't going to get in the car until he's like, I'm going to leave your ass here. Mm-hmm. See? And they at least did it right in this movie than the Monster Squad. They went during the day to do this. Not a Monster Squad. Let's go at night.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you know, the kids in Monster Squad were a little bit younger.
Yeah, 2 years.
Well, still, you know.
They had, what's his name there?
Yeah, Rudy. That's right. Yeah,
but
anyways.
he was busy.
Yeah.
You know, get his jiggy. Anyways, that's besides the point. They're back at the house and they know that they're going to have to defend themselves, that David and the boys are going to come for them.
Before they get back to the house, I just want to say like that there's a quick little scene with Mom working in the video store, and she's talking to a bunch of women in the store there, and I just noticed like, okay, it's a video store. She's dressed wearing this like really fancy blouse, I guess you want to call it. I don't know about women's clothing a lot, but I'll say she was severely overdressed to work in a video store, and I thought that really stood out to me. You know, like when I see a video store employee, usually their shirt and a pair of slacks or khakis. You know what I mean?
her interactions kind of with Max, the supper, and then even there, you kind of see where his agenda is. He kind of reminds her that her boys need a mother, and they need discipline, they need direction, and the interaction you're kind of seeing. Oh, okay, here we go. Because he kind of says that they'll walk all over her, and she's like, they don't walk over me. But you can see his plans starting to
Yeah, at that point, you could be like, okay, yeah, he's definitely the head vampire.
Because that's really his agenda, is for David and the boys, the lost boys,
To be a family.
And to have a mom to kind of give them directions to nurture them.
Yep.
That's basically the agenda here.
It is, yeah, because he wants to grow his vampire family. That's what he wants to procreate.
That's correct. So back at the house there, they know they have to kind of gear up. So they basically fortified the house.
But first they got to get Grandpa out. And So Sam's like, Grandpa, your girlfriend just called. She wants you there an hour early. Oh, okay, I better get going then. So then he takes off early. And so that gives them time to prep the house.
Yes, and they get they go into the church. They get holy water. They mash up all kinds of garlic. I like they got the little squirt guns. Yeah, which is smart.
The garlic water, right? Or was that holy water in there? That was just holy water.
There was holy garlic water.
Yeah, okay.
Because they had garlic and the holy water.
Nice.
So
okay,
yeah. So that's a good effect, and they leave it in the tub. So they get the place all ready to go. They put it in the outside, and then by that time, of course, they have to do the scene where the dog. They're coming.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't want the dog to get it because they're gonna tear it apart.
Yeah. So they go out to save the dog, and of course they trip on the way back. Of course
they do, and they're coming, and it's it's just a typical shot, but it works.
It works. Yeah.
It's like frickin' Sam, stupid dog. Scooby-Dooby-Doo. They show up individually, and one vampire flies right through the fire pit.
Yes.
Pops right out of there. We see this in so many movies. Is the movie, the whole time the narrative sets up the villains, the vampires as these indestructible, taking out people. People don't know how to do it. Then here, the vampires outside of David come off pretty useless, and they get duped really quick. And you're like, I know they wrote it that way, but it kind of lessens, because before that, when they're kind of terrorizing all these groups of people, they're tearing open cars and taking them. And then here, they're having trouble with kids.
Yeah. Maybe they've just never had any, resistance back. I don't know. Maybe no one's ever fought and planned something.
Well, that's true. And most of the time they catch their victims off guard.
Yeah.
Where in this case, that's a good point.
Yeah.
In this case, because you got the Frog Brothers, they are ready. So the humans know what to expect. So
they're aware.
They're aware.
They're aware.
And it plays out that way because the one guy catches them in the bathroom, the Frog Brothers. He right away takes away all their steaks and all that shit, and they push them into the tub. And just before that, of course, Corey Feldman or Edgar Allan, he's like, just to let you guys all know. And he says this around Star and Little Laddie, no vampire goes out when you take him out the same way. It's not pretty. And of course, I know what's going to happen here. Here we go. And it does happen because Nanook pushes the one vampire into the water, and then it destroys the whole plumbing of the house.
Yeah,
blood. Which doesn't make sense.
I know. Make sense. But it's a cool effect, though. The blood is shooting out the taps, and the tiles are exploding.
But my question is, because we got to use a little bit of logic here, and I know it's a movie.
Yeah.
When they push him into the tub and he's in there, when he just disintegrate, there's a plug in the tub to keep the water in there.
Yeah.
So you'd figure if plug was pulled and everything was drained, that would make sense. But they're like, well, how did it drain?
Don't think about it. I will say, before the vampires attack the house, it shows a quick little scene of them hanging in their lair. And one thing I noticed is that when they hang in human form, they have bat feet hanging on.
Yeah, that's a good effect.
It focuses onto their feet when they're hanging. That's the only time I think they show their feet, and it was kind of interesting to see their bat feet. Yeah,
all that. Yeah, it works. Really
so, anyways, back to the house.
Yeah, we're gonna flip flop here. Yeah, back to the house. Yeah, so one vampire is out. Now in the main living room, Sam and I think Michael's unconscious or whatever. So Sam's now being kind of pursued by the dark-haired vampire, Paul. Yeah, but then he shoots the arrow at him and he feigns playing dead. And it's because he gets up, you miss, sucker, and he's like, not this time, and he shoots him. And of course, fucking. The impact of the arrow takes this vampire, the superhuman strength vampire, into the stereo system.
Yes, it does.
And it's death by in excess and
Yep.
electricity.
Yep.
Which is a great effect.
Perfect.
And I love that they're playing good times in that
Yeah.
moment. And that just leaves basically David. But in that time, Sam meets up with the Frog Boys brothers, and they're kind of going over their success. They're telling each other how they killed it. Of course, the Frog brothers are like, we took care of him, but it was Nanook that saved him. But Nanook helped.
I think around this time, Laddie turns into
Right there. He pops out of the bed.
He turns into a vampire. And right away when I seen him, I'm like, that looks like Eddie Munster.
And they go after him and just in the nick of time, out of nowhere, Star. That's twice, because before that they're in the bathroom. Out of nowhere, the one vampire is right behind the bathroom door, and then out of nowhere, Star is nowhere to be seen through all this action happening. All of a sudden, she's there to save Laddie. But it is kind of funny, little Eddie Monster. But it's like, where was Star?
I don't know. Yeah,
hiding? Was she taking a shit?
Sure, we'll do that. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Jamie Gertz doesn't poop.
No. And then that leads us to the good versus evil vampire fight. You've got David versus Michael.
Yeah, and it's a great effect because we don't know where David is, and he's kind of pulling a little bit of Bill the Butcher, where he every time he attacks Michael can't see it coming.
Yeah, he's playing with him.
Yeah, he's playing with him until he smacks him one too many times, and then Michael is now vampire. But again, I thought he had to make his first kill to become a vampire. Like, again, I'm a little bit wheezy on that.
So he can still morph into like the vampire,
I guess, apparently,
form.
Yeah.
But he's still not a full-fledged, because he can still be reversed if you kill the head vampire, right? So he's still okay. Just like Star. Star could technically morph, I think, just like Little Munster did. So
that's true.
They were half. Yeah.
That's right. I don't know why I'm asking that, because we just saw little Eddie Munster morph into. So yeah, you don't have to be. I don't know if I'm stuck on that. You have to make your first full kill to become a full.
Yeah.
But no, you can still morph into that. That's right. I don't know. I had a brain fart there. That's right.
That's okay.
Because I'm trying to see. This is what happens when you're trying to use logic. You end up actually not using logic in the long run. So,
that's right.
So yeah, that's on me.
That's okay.
I'm over analyzing this shit. Okay, this is what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so David and him, and now they're fighting on kind of even keel.
Yeah.
And it's a good scene because they're up in the air, and because all the grandpa, again, by design, making this movie, all these horns,
all the antlers everywhere, and it was a perfect way for David to go.
Yeah, and a great end, eh? And it was it was sad that he met his demise.
Yeah.
Or did he?
Because I loved his character.
His character is, but it's kind of interesting that when he stabbed and all that, all the other vampires, when they got stabbed, they all disintegrated. Mm-hmm. David didn't.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Like, I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wonder why they left that different.
Well, just hold on.
Okay,
so now David is apparently dead.
Yeah.
But there's a problem here that for Star and Michael, nothing has changed. And Sam is like, well, hey, we're good, right? And he's like, no. So then now they know that, I guess David wasn't the head vampire.
That's right.
And at this point, Lucy and Max show up. And I think the jig is up. We know Max is the main vampire because as soon as they walked in there, his first instinct was to go right to David. Yeah. And he looks at him, and I like how the music suddenly plays from the song Little Sister.
Yeah, Cry Little Sister.
Cry Little Sister. Kind of, you hear it there, and it's a great scene.
It is.
Yeah, so they're like, okay, this is what's happening, yada yada yada, and Lucy's like, going on, my boys, and then of course now it's time for him to reveal his ultimate plot,
his plan, yeah.
Which is some man that
it's kind of Scooby-Doo-ish.
That Edward Herrmann, I gotta say, I found the vampire makeup didn't really. It looked cheesy with him because like you have these punker vampires like Heather Sutherland and the other boys. Yeah. They all looked super cool when they had their vampire form. Where Max he looked goofy. It was hard to take him serious, and then he's in that. Yeah,
it was a little Scooby-Doo-ish where the villain kind of just says, "Oh, my plan is this," and
but I'm still gonna win.
Yeah, if it wasn't for you meddling kids, this is basically how it ends, kind of.
Well, and again, you figured Max in this situation, why wouldn't he play it a little bit cool and just wait till everything kind of transpires, and then if he wanted Lucy, why not wait now when he has her again by himself where there's no one there to stop him or interfere?
Yeah, well,
But he again, I don't know. He goes full on the usual villain that I'm gonna lose it and tell you what's happening.
That's
and
right.
He does, and he's like, I'm here. It was all my plan is to make us one big giant family.
Yeah.
But it's for these pesky kids and that dog Scooby Doo Nanook. And then he goes, So he makes the proposition, and clearly he's really powerful.
He is.
Not power enough for the old horny toad grandpa coming in there, and he's got his horn and frickin'
his stakes.
The stake pops right through there and impales.
Yeah, like he had like a rack of stakes on the hood of his Jeep or whatever, and he just basically shot it at him.
Just ready any time, and it goes right into the fire pit, so a grisly death.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's that. And then basically everything is good. Michael's good, Star's good, little laddie comes down, Star, and of course the Frog Brothers are talking about how much they're going to charge. Like, talk about pieces of shit.
The one quote from Grandpa that I really enjoyed was, one thing I couldn't stand about living in Santa Carla, all the damn vampires. The rest of the family looks at him like, what the fuck, Grandpa?
Yeah, you knew.
You knew.
You knew.
He didn't say nothing.
Yeah. And it's great, and then the movie fades away, and then that's it.
So it was a comical ending.
Yeah, because like it kind of sets it up for serious, because he gets up, kills the vampire, goes right to the fridge to get his root beer and his treats.
About that, yeah, it was weird. He grabbed it looked reddish when he was drinking that drink from the fridge, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I was wondering about that. I'm like,
well, I think it's just the lighting.
Maybe
it
might have been the lighting. But I was like, wait, is he drinking blood?
Yeah. I think it's from the fire in the house. I think it's that time for...
Did you know? Raz, did you know that Jim Carrey was considered for the role of David? He previously portrayed a vampire in the film Once Bitten from 1985.
I did not. That's interesting.
Have you seen that movie? Once Bitten?
No.
Oh, I recommend it. It's funny. Yeah.
It's a funny movie?
Yep.
Okay. Oh,
yep.
Well.
Comedy.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind there. Turk, did you know The Lost Boys is inspired by Peter Pan? The role of Max is inspired by Peter himself, as he is the leader of the Lost Boys and immortal, just like Peter. Max wishes not to only initiate the new members, but also a mother. This mother is Lucy, whom is inspired by probably Wendy, and is the driving force for the plot of the Lost Boys, as it is the main reason for Michael is being initiated in the first place.
Yeah, the similarities are pretty crazy.
So
yeah,
Peter Pan.
Raz, did you know it has been highly theorized that Grandpa was actually a half vampire and the root beer was actually animal blood due to his hobby as a taxidermist?
Turk, did you know that the names of the Frog Brothers, Edgar and Allan, are a reference to Edgar Allan Poe, a well-known writer of horror fiction?
Makes sense.
Also, did you know the two Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, appeared in 7 movies, and like we mentioned, this was their first meeting. But what maybe a lot of people don't know, that Corey Haim actually auditioned for the role of Mouth in the Goonies. So there's some tons of parallel, and actually another parallel between the two Coreys, even before they were together. Corey Feldman was a friend with this actor girl that actually Corey Haim dated. And they spoke about him, so there's lots of correlation between those two.
Correlation, did you say?
Correlation.
Correlation.
That's what I said, correlation. Well, Turk, that kind of wraps up our retro roundtable of The Lost Boys. It's fantastic watch. It's fun talking about it.
Yep. And I know I'm starting to appreciate Halloween films a little more for the season, to kind of get into the season, so I'll probably revisit this again.
Yeah, this is a kind of a movie I love to watch if I can once a year. It's just, especially around October, it just feels a little more special.
Yep.
So I highly recommend it. I know, like, so many people, like, just to go on a little tangent here, I know our movies, Turk and I are not really big, like, I don't watch thrasher movies and really super scary, but I like the horror comedy type ones, so you kind of see that's kind of the theme here.
Yeah.
So those are the type of movies that that we'll watch. But on that note,
Yeah.
see ya. Thanks for listening to the Turk and Raz podcast. We appreciate all your support. You can catch us wherever you get your podcasts, such as Google, Spotify, Podbean, Audible, and Amazon. You can also follow us on Twitter at Turk Raz. You can also find us on channels such as Odyssey and Rumble. We would love to hear your feedback. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Smash the like and subscribe to the channels. Also ring the bells for notification and share our videos and podcasts out there. Thank you for listening.